This episode of a Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast is sponsored by Phoenix Shaving and Audible.com.
You are listening to the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder, and with me, as usual, joining from the Great White North is John G. Goodman.
Hi.
And with me in person is Donovan Fowler. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic.
I was waiting for our friend from the Great White North, but then I forgot I was supposed to go first.
Yeah. See, we got to get this call response thing worked out for future episodes.
One of these days.
For
we'll
future
right.
episodes, yeah. Well, I forgot to say, I haven't said the tagline of this for a while.
We have a tagline?
The pod for the Rebel and the Renaissance Man. Your podcast for the Rebel and the Renaissance Man. So if you're one of those things or both of those things, this podcast's for you. Let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping. John, what are you drinking?
Moosehead Lager. It's Canada's oldest independent brewery.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, we've got kind of a Canadian theme here today because both Donovan and I are drinking Providential Ale from Trader Joe's. It is, what do you call it, a Belgian style beer. And it's brewed in, here we go, Clink. Brewed in Chambly, Quebec, John. That's actually
15 minutes away.
Well, you know the beer Fin du Monde?
No.
You've never seen it around?
No.
Well, it's made by Unibrew in Quebec, and they make this for Trader Joe's. And side by side in the store, you could see them, Fin du Monde and Providential Ale, and this one is half the price, and they're the exact same thing. It even says Unibrew Chambly on the back and has a Unibrew cork on it. So little life hack there for you who like Fin du Monde.
It also has
Very
a
nice.
Unibrow on the bottle.
Exactly.
I bet you guys pay less than we do for the exact same thing, even though it's
Probably.
brewed 15 minutes away.
Probably. And I am smoking, this is the first pipe I ever smoked. This is my Missouri Meerschaum Corncob Legend pipe. Or it might be the Washington Cobb. I don't know. It's the same shape.
Looks a lot like a country gentleman, actually.
Yeah, and inside I am smoking, it's called One for the Road, and it's from the little Tobacco Junction tobacco shop in Longview, Texas. And later on this show, we have Matt Paxton coming on from A&E's Hoarders. I don't know if you guys watched Hoarders before?
Yeah, awesome show.
Yeah, it's a pretty bleak window sometimes.
I'm pretty sure my neighbor's a hoarder, so that's all I need.
Yeah.
I peek into his apartment every once in a while. He's got newspapers.
No, it's always newspapers. But yeah, Matt's a great guy. He's a cleaning expert on Hoarders, probably the most popular one. Speaks around the country. And he has his own podcast, which is hilarious, called 5 Decisions Away. And he's a great storyteller, so that should be a lot of fun. So what's going on in your guys' weeks?
Well, just doing our things.
Doing your things. That's
Yeah.
it. All right.
Keeping busy.
It feels like I feel like the listeners just feel like they're listening to a phone call right now. Like, what was the point of that answer?
How was your day, John?
Well,
Good.
you know.
Well,
I'm doing good.
I'm doing good.
What the hell are you calling me, John?
How'd you get this number?
Yeah. How was your day, Donovan?
It was good. It was it was actually a pretty pleasant day in Hollywood. Not too hot. We've been experiencing some heat recently, as you well know.
Yeah.
It's much hotter up here than it is down there. But this is driving down the street today, actually on my way here, and had the pleasure of seeing a man undress on the side of the road. Now, to his credit, I'm pretty sure he was an actor who was getting getting changed for an audition, but it was in full view of rush hour traffic, and he followed the rules. No eye contact with anybody while you're doing it. Just try to fumble around as best you can.
The legal procedure.
Just eyes forward. That's it.
I feel like the difference between actors and homeless people in LA, there's a very slim, dividing line between the two.
It's true. It's true. Oftentimes they are one and the same.
Speaking of undressing, I was at a wedding this past week.
I thought we were going to go into Bill Cosby.
Well, I don't know. I'm avoiding Bill Cosby at the moment.
Just kidding.
But yeah, speaking of undressing,
because of the
I went to a
rape.
wedding. Oh man, I was at a wedding this past week, and I just noticed that, I don't know, maybe I'm an old curmudgeon man, but basically, as soon as the ceremony is done, all these groomsmen and the groom himself just shed their jackets, take off their ties and everything, as if they couldn't, stand being in formal wear for more than 30 minutes in their life. It just seems like, what's the deal with that? I mean, don't you if you've rented a tuxedo and you have this evening where you get to wear it and it's a special occasion where, you get maybe a handful of times in your life you get to do this. Why is the first reaction of these guys to just, take it all off of me?
First two questions.
Yeah.
How hot was it?
It wasn't hot. It wasn't
two,
hot.
what did the bridesmaids do?
Well, good point.
I think it's because it's a rented tux. You don't know who's been in that thing.
You don't want to stay in that too long. You might catch something.
True. I mean, knowing how to wear, I don't know, maybe we should talk to Tanner Guzzi about this, but just knowing how to wear formal wear and doing it, with ease and style without, looking like a schlub. I don't know. Like some of these guys had their ties off before the pictures were even taken and they had to put them back on. I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, are you like a 12-year-old? Like, I don't know. It just chaps my ass.
Yeah, it's sad. Just stay in your tux. You only have a couple opportunities throughout life to wear one.
I don't know. Let's go to another
Sir Crowder's restroom review of the week. Oh dear.
This week, I am reviewing the restroom at Pickwick Bowling Alley, again in Burbank. All right, so here we go. At first glance, this restroom comes off as outdated and drab, but the aroma of stale cigarettes from a bygone era blended with the scent of deep-fried appetizers just outside the door somehow make it feel like home. Not to mention the commode handled flushing the Brunswick-sized payload I left behind with ease and minimal embarrassment, giving credence to the old mantra, they just don't make them like they used to. 4 stars for this bowling alley restroom.
Nice bowling pun, Brunswick.
Brunswick. Yeah. So I went bowling this week for the first time in I don't know how long. Have you guys done that recently?
Maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
I think I did it like last year.
It's actually a fun time. I had a good time doing it, but I realized that all my life bowling growing up, I was bowling a lie. And John, maybe you might know what I was talking about.
The small balls?
The small balls. In Canada.
I know you like the big balls.
In Quebec, I guess I looked this up afterwards. They play with smaller balls and they play with squatter pins. They're shorter pins with rubber bumpers around them. They're called duck pins.
This sounds like lawn bowling.
I know. Ever since I always thought that was bowling, and I remember seeing the little 3 holes in the cartoon and stuff. And I don't know what I thought. I thought that maybe that was just a Flintstones thing.
Well, welcome to the States.
And yeah, so it was the first time where I actually had to use a real bowling ball. They have all different weights and finger hole sizes, and it was a little bit stressful finding the ball that worked for me. I don't know if you've experienced this, but now it's time to go to some
Listener mail.
All right, John. We got another iTunes review there. Who's it by?
All right, this one's by Z Burnout, and it's titled "Inspiring Me to Scoff More Laws, Especially Ones Aimed at Pipe Smokers."
All
right.
That's good.
These gentlemen scofflawers are the kind of guys you want to get to know. Oh my God, I can't fucking read.
All right, John, retake that one.
Take 22.
Do you know what I do at work? I change all my fonts to Courier New.
You are an old man. You feel more comfortable with the typewriter font.
All right, here we go. These gentlemen scofflawers are the kind of guys that know the difference between an aperitif and a fortified dessert wine, but probably drink Applejack or a cold one, although I doubt they go as low as bathtub gin.
Don't make any assumptions. Knee-jerk assumptions.
The kind of guys
drink
who are
anything.
comfortable being men, not having to resort to pretending to act like one to impress some hippie chick who wants you to go to a march with her to tip over recycling bins while she stands back and screams at the fascist cops.
What does recycling bins have to do with this?
I thought the fascists liked recycling.
Seems contradictory.
Yeah, it seems like
the
she would
hippies.
like recycling bins.
Yeah, hippies like that sort of thing. These are the kind of guys who stand out from the hippies or hipsters or whatever they're being called nowadays. You know, the ones who dress like lumberjacks but have never used an axe in their lives.
It's true.
The podcast is about what interests normal, sane men. Well, sane?
I don't know about that.
These
Maybe interest normal sane men.
little crazy.
These type of guys are not quite on the endangered species list, but if society keeps going the way it is, they probably will be. If you want to hang out with if you want to hang on to your sanity and can't find anything you consider normal, try listening to these guys who just do their own thing and in the process mock the PC crowd, although I do believe they have a token Canadian, but not for cultural diversity, but because he's pretty funny. Why, thank you.
This is your one fan, John.
I have one person fooled. I can't believe I used cultural diversity in a sentence. I can't believe I used token Canadian in a sentence. Knock off that hippie crap and act like a man. If you enjoy fine tobacco in your favorite briar or cob, know that a real man is confident, respectful, and hardworking. And if you like to have some part of your life where you can just enjoy the company of normal, rational, funny guys, you'll be right at home listening to this podcast.
This is like an actual review. Like this would be like on a blog or something.
Which one of us is the normal one?
It wouldn't fit on the back of a book.
It wouldn't fit. It definitely wouldn't fit on the back of the book.
You'd need the front and back flap.
Maybe it'd be a forward.
If we were to pick one quote to go on the back of a book, what would it be? Knock off that hippie crap.
Knock off that hippie crap. Or I can't believe I used the word token Canadian in a sentence.
I doubt they go as low as bathtub gin.
Oh, man. All right. Thank you, Z Burnout. Now let's go to a quick break, and we'll be back with special guest Matt Paxton. Now, this segment is brought to you by Audible.com. And for you, the listeners of the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. They're a great website, and if you like listening to podcasts, you like listening to audiobooks. And again, with this free trial, you can download any title you would like. I would recommend If at Birth You Don't Succeed, written by my good friend and friend of the show, Zach Anner. He's a hilarious guy, and he reads his own audiobook, which is rare. So that's a bonus. So download his book today. He's a guest of the show. You can listen to his book for free. Now, audiobooks are great. They work just like, listening to a podcast. If you like listening to podcasts, you like listening to audiobooks. Well, you're sitting there, cooking dinner, or you're, at work, typing some emails, or maybe you're stuck in LA traffic like I am, or maybe you're, it's a weekend and you're just sitting back and doing some Pinterest crafts that you've always wanted to do. that you've had there on your board, just waiting for you to tackle, you might as well listen to an audiobook while doing that. And people don't know that you killed two birds with one stone. You made an amazing Pinterest craft, and you listened to the book. Now, I don't know which of our listeners are making Pinterest crafts, but there are some pretty manly crafts you can do on Pinterest. So go to audibletrial.com/gentscofflaw to get your free audiobook download and your free 30-day trial today. You won't regret it. All right, I'm really excited to have this guest. For those of you who are a fan of the hit TV show Hoarders, he is a cleaning expert, everybody's favorite cleaning expert on that show, author, speaker, and podcaster, Matt Paxton. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
So I've always kind of, I guess, had an interest in a lot of the weird and the grotesque, and so I immediately was drawn to Hoarders when I saw the first episode, or whatever the episode was I saw first. And you seem like a lot of people are drawn to you. You're like the expert. There's a lot of other experts on that show, but you have a huge fan base.
Yeah, I'm lucky, man. A camera guy told me the first time I got on the show, like they found me on a Tuesday on YouTube like 8 years ago. So it wasn't a whole lot of people on there.
Wow.
And then like on Friday, I was in Alabama and I was like filming a show. And I was like, well, what do I do? Like I didn't know anything. And they were like, look, man, just do what you do at work. But he was like, just be yourself because this is going to be a big show. It hadn't aired yet.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is going to be a big deal. So like, just be yourself because whatever you are today, this is what you're going to have to be on camera.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, I was broke. I was literally like living on my buddy's couch and I didn't even have enough money to get there. They had to front me money to get there.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just like crazy excited to have like a meal, like with they were going to pay for my beer and my food. And I was like so stoked. And so I was happy. And so I was just myself and I just told it like it was. And then I think people like that because reality was still just really getting started in TV.
Yeah.
So it was heavily overscripted. And so I think the fact that we weren't scripted, people dug that.
Yeah.
And that held strong the entire, 8 seasons we were on.
Yeah. It never really felt like it was scripted like a lot of these other shows.
It really wasn't. They would just be like, yo, go help people. And at first they would try to script it. They'd be like, can we create some drama? And we were like, just leave the damn cameras running. Like, that's all you really have to do. Like, this disorder naturally has drama every hour. So we're just like, don't get in the way and let us do our thing. And so they would do a lot of long shots because the family would tighten up when they thought the cameras were on. Okay. And then the minute in 8 seasons, they never understood that mics were on all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so they would like the minute we're breaking for lunch, and then the real stuff would come out, and so we'd be shooting it long, and then you'd have to
hilarious.
like come up and get it.
That's hilarious. Well, how do you get into that line of work? I mean, so were you dealing with hoarders before, or were you just like a cleaner? Like how did you get started?
Yeah, I mean, it's you want the long version or the super short version?
Give me what the long version.
I'll give you the in between. I was an economist for the Federal Reserve. Believe it or not, I went to school outside of Washington, D.C. I wanted to be an economist, got the job I wanted at the Federal Reserve. And like the day 2, I was like, oh, crap, I don't want this job. Like this sucks. And so I tried to get out of it and I had to stay 6 months. And on my 6th month, I quit and I went to Caesar's Palace and I became an economist for Caesar's Palace casinos in Las Vegas. And I think one of y'all's from LA. So, I mean, you get Vegas, like it's awesome. It's too awesome. I was a 24-year-old kid. I got in a ton of trouble, and I got addicted to everything you can get addicted to.
Oh, wow.
And they moved me to Tahoe to sober me up. And if you've ever spent a weekend in Tahoe, that's not the place you go to sober up.
I've never been, but I've heard.
No, and it got worse, and I got addicted to everything, like every drug, like girls, gambling, everything. And so it took me about 6 months to really hit rock bottom. Owed a bookie $40,000. And he beat the crap out of me, and I had to like pay him back. And so I had I was going to rob a bank, and then I was going to. Am I allowed to cuss on that? I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss or not.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, literally, my low point was I owed this bookie $40,000, and I had a day to come up with it. And I said to myself, like, I wonder how many dicks I'm going to have to suck for $40,000. And like, the math on
That's
that
the
is
first
alarming.
place your mind went to.
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to rob a bank first,
No, yeah.
and I knew I'd get caught. And so I was like, well, the statistics in me, I was like, well, the odds are bad on that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, how else I can make really easy money? And I was like, maybe I'll run some drugs from Mexico. And I called my drug dealer. I'm very open about, my past. And I called my drug dealer and I was like, yo, man, I'm in trouble. I owe all this money and I got to pay him by tomorrow. And I need 40 grand. Like, can I talk to like your boss? Can I go down to Mexico and pick some stuff up? And my drug dealer was like, dude, you sound desperate. Lose my number. I want nothing to do with you.
Oh, wow.
And I like when your drug dealer's judging you for poor decisions, like that's a low point.
Yeah.
So then my next one was like, all right, I'm going to suck some dicks. And I was like, I would have done it, but like 400, that's not good math. And so like, I was like, all right, I'm just going to kill myself. I really thought about killing myself. And that was my low point. Obviously I didn't do it, but I came back to Virginia where I live, and it took me about a year to get back, and just kind of traveled around the country, just failing at everything. And I started cleaning old ladies' attics because I couldn't get to work. And so I was actually cleaning old ladies' attics for about 3 or 4 years. Oh, wow. And was just struggling. My dad, my stepdad, both my grandfathers, they all died during that time.
No.
And I just like total rock bottom. You think the Tahoe was rock bottom. It was all those guys dying. And then believe it or not, like that's when I came up with this business. And so I was cleaning hoarded homes for like 4 years before the show came out, but we didn't even know what it was.
Wow.
Like we just called them pack rats. We thought they were like old ladies from church. And so I already knew how to do it. We didn't have a wrapper around it. And then they saw me on YouTube and they were like, we dig what you do, man. Let's put you on the show. And like, true story, the day that it aired, Verizon turned off my phone.
Oh, wow.
Because I hadn't paid it in 3 months. Back then it was 3 months. Now it's 2 months.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay it. But like, I knew the math. So I was like, all right, well, I'll stretch it 90 days, then I'll pay it because of the cash flow stuff. And I was just really, really, really like so bummed because I was like, I'm finally on TV. Like my mom's finally going to have something to be proud of. Yeah. And they cut my phone off. And so I begged them, and they were like, we can't do anything. And then I said, look, dude, you have a mom? And he was like, yeah, what is it? What do you mean? And this is like the guy on the phone. I was like, I'm going to be on TV tonight. Like, look it up. Like, look in the TV guide. Like, that's how long ago this was. Yeah. And I was like, please, like, I want my mom to like call me and say she's proud. And the guy's like, I got a mom, man. I hear you. I'm going to give you 24 hours. I'll let you receive calls, but you can't make any out. Oh, wow. And so he got my phone ring, and literally the show aired. And the next morning I had like 30 calls. I had about 500 emails. Wow. And I've been cleaning houses ever since.
Wow. What a great story.
Long story short. Yeah. I mean, it was rock bottom, but I will tell you this. I mean, ironically, you become the best cleaner. I think I'm the best. Back to your first question. I'm really good and people like me because I'm very open about my past and I've been at rock bottom. So when I'm working with these hoarders, I'm talking to them with them because I've been where they are. Yeah. And I think a lot of therapists and a lot of our like more polished people, they never really got to rock bottom.
Yeah. Well,
they don't understand.
Well, that makes all the difference too, because I think when watching the show, like you come off as a no-nonsense guy, but you also come off as compassionate at the same time. Well, some of the therapists, not all of them, but some of them come off as like they're clearly like doing the procedures that a therapist does, and it doesn't come off as very human in that sense.
I know specifically who you're speaking of, and yes, I that is true. And I just one thing people don't realize is we'll spend 24 hours to 48 hours with the family before we go on camera. Yeah. And so I spend a lot of time in the home getting to know these family members. So by the time we get on camera, we have a relationship. Yeah. And so like when I push them, they're like, oh, okay. Like this dude's with me. He's been in my house with me. He's not just coming in as a TV person. Yeah. And so I'll invest a lot of time with them to get that relationship before we do anything.
Yeah. There's even one episode when you actually slept in the hoard. That was insane.
And that, I was against that. It was not the best thing. I mean, I knew it was for ratings and I was like, this is wrong. And I called all my experts. I called my therapist. I called, all these professionals I work with and they all said, don't do it. So then I told A&E, I was like, nope, not going to do it. This is ethically wrong. There's no amount of money you can pay me to do this. And like 20 minutes later, we found out there's a very specific amount of money you can pay me. So I did. And, not knowing that I would learn everything. Yeah. Like I didn't think I was going to learn. I thought I knew everything about hoarding. And turns out, man, you don't know nothing until you spend the night in the house.
Yeah.
And because when the lights go off, you can't see anything. And these houses are jacked full. And so you only going off of what your memory is. And so you think this wall of stuff is books and papers, but when you start sweating, that sweat feels like a spider.
Oh yeah.
And you don't know if it's a spider or if it's sweat. And and then something gets on your face, or if something runs across, a can rolls across your leg, and you're like, is that a really thick snake? Or is that a can? And so your brain just goes insane, man. And it's constant, and you can't sleep. And so I ended up doing it 7 times. I learned more those 7 times I spent the night in the house than I did for 7 years cleaning the houses. It's the mental trauma that you go through every night.
Yeah.
That's what really puts the hoarder in a crazy place. And I experienced it, and it was insane.
Do they eventually just tune that out and get used to it? Or is it always constant torment like that?
Constant, man, 24/7. I call it mental violence. There's an Avett Brothers. I don't know if you've heard the Avett Brothers, really good band.
Yeah.
There's one of their songs, the lines go, will I ever know silence without mental violence? And I love that. Will I ever know silence without mental? You and I, we have silence.
Yeah.
But our hoarders, man, it's constant mental violence. They're opening their eyes, they see it, they see everything that's bad, and then they close their eyes and they hear it and they feel it, and the anxiety kicks in. So, believe it or not, daytime's actually better for a hoarder.
Wow.
And I compare it to, if you've ever taken a red eye from LA to DC, or LA to New York.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that every night for 10 years in a row.
Wow.
That's the mental state that they're in. And I mean, if I'm in the nice seats up front, I still struggle on that red eye.
Yeah.
And they do it every night, back to back to back to back. It's complete mental violence. It's and no wonder they're so tired and so out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's neat to get this kind of insight, because you don't really get that from watching the show. I mean, that they have issues and stuff, but being able to, to understand what they go through is really, really neat.
It's all caused by trauma. Something bad has happened to them. Every one of them. The more I've probably cleaned 3,000 houses by now, and the more every family I've met with, something bad has happened to them. All divorce or death or loss of a kid, or a lot of them been physically or sexually abused. Something bad has happened, and that's why no one would choose to act this way.
Yeah.
So how does it go from something terrible has happened in my life to I'm going to start collecting all of these things and filling my house? Weird stuff.
Yeah. How do you go from a Beanie Baby to shitting in your living room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
Well, it's no different than how do I go from drinking, a Natty Light to doing heroin 2 times a day.
Yeah.
Right. It happens slowly over time. And I use that example on purpose. It's no different, man. It's no different than, I met a guy the other day, he drinks a case of beer a day. And I don't think he's that drunk, really. I think he's just okay. Right. Yeah. But there was a time when 2 beers messed that guy up. And it's gradually over time. And I tell everybody, what this hoarder is doing is they're looking for happiness. They're looking for happiness and self-worth. They're looking in the wrong place. They're looking for it in stuff, but that's what they're looking for. And so any of it, I gambled, I drank, I did drugs. I was looking for an escape. I was looking for happiness. They're doing the same. But once you smoke weed a lot, well, weed's not enough. You got to do something else. And so they start doing bigger and more stuff.
Wow. That's crazy.
It is. It's intense, man.
I mean, how common is hoarding? Because, you're mentioning other addictions and stuff, and we always hear about those. But maybe that's why Hoarders is such a fascinating show, because it's not what people think of when they think of an addiction or the TV show was kind of, it's like a car wreck. It's fascinating. You don't want to turn it off. It makes you feel better about your own life, too. You're like, oh, well, my house isn't that bad when you see that. It makes me want to clean my house when I finish.
They're like, dude, I cleaned my house so much on Wednesday, man. For me, it's no different than watching Biggest Loser. Yeah. I'm eating a tub of ice cream watching Biggest Loser, and I'm like, well, I'm not so fat. I need to lose 50 pounds, but not 600. Right? It's the same. It's the same thing. Yeah. Now the commonality is this will blow you away. It's actually ranked around 10 to 14 million people. So that's just under 5% of the U.S. struggles with hoarding.
Wow.
That's a massive number. Now, this is what will really blow you away. 10 to 14 million. We just had an election last year. You probably haven't heard anything about it. No. But down here in the States, we had a crazy election. And I think we talked about immigration. Well, there's only 14 million illegal immigrants in America.
Oh.
And I'm telling you, there's just as many hoarders.
So,
And that's a proven stat. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying one's more important than the other, but think how much we talk about immigration and think how little we talk about hoarding.
yeah. Wow.
I give speeches all around the country now, and everywhere we go, I say, hey, does anybody here know someone that's affected by hoarding? And the entire room raises their hand.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of subjective, isn't it, as well? Like, how do you know where to draw the line between little Jimmy collecting his bottle caps to shitty diapers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Both of them have poopy diapers. It's just which one is how old they are. The line we say is has it caused damage to your family, friends, or neighbors? That's when it crosses the line. And by the way, some people are just messy.
Yeah.
Period. Like my wife is messy. Is she mentally ill? Not for that reason. No. So, like, you don't, just because your partner is messy doesn't mean they hoard. And we do, to your point, you're dead right. We overuse that term now. That's one bad thing about the TV shows. We've made it so popular. Like, I get calls all the time. They're like, oh, my 7-year-old, she's a hoarder. She's got 100 purses.
Yeah.
Well, that's not hoarding. That's bad parenting. Like, there's nothing with hoarding. How does a 7-year-old have 100 purses? Someone bought it. Someone picked it up. But it is subjective. We all say it. But I mean, the clinical, like, there's actually 5 stages, and 4 and 5 is what you see me deal with on TV. And that number is between 10 and 14 million.
Oh, that's pretty deep into it at that point.
Stage 1, like, well, I mean, like, we just have too many clothes, too many piles. My God, I mean, I think everybody has some chronic disorganization, and the clinical term is chronic disorganization.
Yeah,
I think most people suffer with that, especially in America, we're a consumeristic society. We buy.
Yeah,
and some of us have too much stuff.
Well, that's what I wonder too. Like, is hoarding? Is it like a first world phenomenon? Because if you're in somewhere in the third world, what do you collect? You know what I mean? Like, is it an American problem or?
You ever saw South Park? Or not South Park. Family Guy had an episode of Ethiopian hoarders, and there was a dude like in a hut, and there was like one stick on the ground, and he's like, "Oh no!" I mean, it's very, very. It is It's not, we think it's an Americanized thing. It's not. Okay. It's a monetized and grief thing. So the only thing that causes hoarding is grief. Something bad has happened. Right? And you're looking for happiness over the stuff. So if you have a consumeristic society, there's hoarding. So we have a lot in Europe. We have a lot in Asia. We have a lot in North America.
Wow. That's crazy. I used to think that John here was a hoarder because back when we were teenagers, we'd go to the movie theater and they used to have these stacks of movie magazines, and he would grab the whole stack and store them, and he'd be like, one day all of these magazines are going to be worth something, and I have a bunch of them.
I am sure you could we're on Skype right now for listeners. If we widescreen this, I'm sure you got a ton of podcast equipment you do not need somewhere in that room.
It's true.
Anybody in radio or podcasting, we all hoard a little. We get too much crap.
Like, oh, I need this adapter. What if I need to use this? No, it's been sitting there for 2 years.
Suitcase.
That's crazy. Well,
Matt, what's your favorite soap?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me the question. There's an old soap called Lava. And it had sandstone in it. It was a pumice soap that had sandstone actually in it. So it had an aggregate that actually would scratch stuff off. I love soap, and I'm a Dr. Bronner's fanatic, man.
That's what I use.
Dr. Bronners is.
That stuff will make your dingle tingle, though, if you're not careful.
Exactly.
That's good.
It up, gives you a little extra push. I will tell you, on the cleaning side, I love Simple Green. That's a really good cleaner, an all-purpose cleaner, and it's got some. I mean, unfortunately, there's not really a very good all-natural cleaner out there yet.
Yeah,
it's just not. But people don't know this. Spit is your own saliva is a phenomenal cleaner.
Yeah.
You can't get something, put spit on it and rub it off. That sounds horrible. But if you do that, it'll really, really, really clean it up.
My dad used to do that with our hockey masks when we were kids. He would spit in them and then buff them out. And we're like, what? And it was like an anti-fog solution.
Yes. Y'all are, all right, so up north, we get that with body armor. We get that a lot. And hockey equipment apparently just reeks.
Yeah.
We used to, if you put about 1 part Dr. Bronners in a 10-part water, it'll actually dilute it really good and just spray that on it.
Yeah.
Let it sit about 30 seconds, wipe it, it'll get rid of that funk really, really good.
Really? Well, these are good tips. I got to use these.
Apparently, I've never played it, but apparently Hawker gear reeks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My dad plays hockey, and we were at one of his games the other day in the locker room, and I remember it like it's a distinct hockey smell that you only get in a hockey locker room that's not anywhere else. It's pretty gross.
But apparently, I used to work with a lot of police departments, and they had, like, when budgets are tight, they have to share bulletproof vests, and the bulletproof vests were the same issue.
Oh,
and it's actually the tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is what you want to use. It's an all natural essential oil, and that's really the most important part of Dr. Bronners is that tea tree oil.
Oh, really? Cool. I'm learning new things.
That's some strong stuff.
Dude, I'm a cleaning geek, man. I love it. I love it.
Well, I mean, I can't not ask you about this episode, which I think everybody talks about. The crazy cat lady episode with the cats in her freezer. I mean, was that as bad as it was on TV?
It was as bad as it was on TV. Hashtag LiquidCats is what we found in that. So I have this thing, whenever I go in the house, I no matter what I say, hey, that's not that bad. I've seen a lot worse. I always say that. They're not that bad. It's not worse. Well, I walked in her house, and she probably had about 6 inches of cat poop the whole way around the house.
Gosh.
And it was solidified. We should take a Sawzall to cut it apart because it was so solidified the whole way through. In some places, it was like 2 feet. And I was like, well, this really isn't that bad. I've seen a lot. She goes, no, Matt, you haven't seen the kitchen. Come to the kitchen. And I get to the kitchen, and then, like, the fridge opens, and it's filled. I mean, top to bottom, cats. Right? And what people don't know is, like, if you leave your lettuce too long in the fridge, what happens? It liquefies.
Yeah, it becomes liquid. Yeah.
Crisper drawer. Well, the same thing happens with cats. And so we had about 2 inches of liquid cats at the bottom of this fridge. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to get liquefied cat out of this fridge? Like, what's the protocol on that? And, like, do I take it to, I can't, like, bag it, or can I? And I had to, like, do all this research to find out, like, am I even legally allowed to transport liquid cats? And in that part of the country, I wasn't even allowed to transport the cats. It was about 80 cats. It was too many cats for me to legally transport in bags. I had to have a cremation place come get it.
Wow.
It was the craziest, worst smell. And the poor lady, and I say this all the time, you'll be like, well, how do you get 80 cats in a refrigerator? And they're dead, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, start asking, like, what's up? Like, what's the mental process there? And it always makes sense if you understand the story.
Yeah.
Well, her son had died of drug addiction, he OD'd, and she didn't have enough money to pay for her son's burial. And so for her, she actually was trying to, like do the right thing. She would find these cats all over the roads, and she'd take them home, bag them. And in fact, what you didn't see on TV was she had actually put a Post-it note on every one of these cats with a name and a date and where she found them. And she was going to really try to, like, properly bury these things. And as crazy as that sounds, it's kind of sweet, right?
Yeah.
And she worked at Walmart. She didn't make enough money. She could never do it. So we ended up paying for all of them. We cremated. We ended up getting her son a headstone. Like, we did all the stuff for her. She was the coolest lady when you got to know her.
Yeah.
Like, actually amazing. And I actually got invited to her wedding this last summer.
Oh, really?
Like, wow. Man, she got her life back together. She got into, like, assisted living. She got food. She got medication. She got help. She got socialization.
Oh, wow.
And, man, she got a little rascal, like one of those scooters, and she ended up getting a boyfriend. And, man, she got married.
Wow.
Like, she's doing awesome.
That's a great...
I mean, there are really good stories. You don't hear them because people don't want to put that on TV.
Yeah. Well, that's, like, it's good to hear that because that's probably the worst one I've ever seen and the worst one we've all seen on TV. But to hear that it turned out well.
The worst part of that, I don't know if you guys have kids. I have 3 kids.
I don't. Yeah.
Doing what I do, I got to be really careful what I share with my family. And so my wife actually never watched the show. She watched the last episode. That was it. Last season. It was a 2-hour episode. And so she had never watched it before. Yeah. And because she doesn't really want to know what I'm doing in that world. And in the cat refrigerator, there was a little thing of peach Yoplait yogurt down in the second drawer. And it was open and there was a spoon in it, which meant she had eaten it and put it back in the fridge. That's what grossed me out worse than liquid cat. There was yogurt half eaten in that fridge.
Oh, gosh.
So fast forward 3 years later, guess what my son's favorite yogurt is?
Oh, no.
Yoplait yogurt. And so every time I open my fridge, I smell 60 dead cats.
Oh gosh.
I smell the liquefied cats, and I see it, and I feel it, and I smell it. I actually had to shave my body after that episode because I couldn't get the smell off my body.
Oh gosh.
I felt like it was all in my hair and all. And I mean, I shaved every part of my body because I couldn't. I just freaked out. I smell that every time I see Pichio play yogurt, so I constantly try to get my kids to eat different type of yogurt. That's their favorite.
Oh my gosh.
And so I can't say any. My wife doesn't even know that happens.
Really? Wow. That's crazy. And we got a question actually on Instagram that said, "What's the worst thing you ever smelled during filming?" That's probably the answer, unless you can think of something else.
The liquefied cats was pretty rough. I had 40,000 gallons of urine in one house.
Oh gosh.
And it was in Seattle, and so they were all in old plastic and glass jars. And in Seattle, you legally have to recycle that shit.
Really?
And so we had to pour the urine out into a big 55-gallon drum and then suck it up with a hose.
Oh,
and so I had to open 20 years of urine. And that got pretty ripe. I mean, it got really, really intense.
I can imagine.
And that smell was something else.
It'll probably sting your eyes.
Dead bodies is a smell you'll never forget. I've cleaned up a lot of dead bodies, and that's a very unique smell. Yeah. But probably the 40,000 gallons of urine is probably, and definitely LiquidCats is up there.
LiquidCats, hashtag LiquidCats. That's hilarious.
I got the name of your podcast up there.
Yeah. Speaking of podcasts, you have your own podcast. Are you still going to continue doing that? Because that was a great show.
It was fun, man. I had a 2-year go. I did it for 2 years, and the funny thing with podcasts is, and TV, they get you recognized. And that was a brutally honest podcast. Just my buddies and I would sit down after we cleaned and we'd tell stories.
Yeah.
And so we went through our ups and our downs. And then we ended up getting a really big national sponsorship. And the guys asked me to not cuss at all. And so I tried to do a podcast without cussing. And I told them, I was like, this is clean. Like, you can hear it. It's good. I didn't say a single word.
Yeah.
And I said, like, it sounded like a George Carlin, skit. Like every bad word you could have was in there, and words I don't even use on a daily basis. I said, and I said, guys, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so I dropped the podcast. I sold out. It was a lot of money to not do it, and so I had to not do it. But I just started a new one. I got a whole new business now, and cleaning up estates, and so we started a new podcast. It'll drop next week.
Awesome.
It's called Modern Grief, and so I'll start it again. I'm 10 years older than I was when I started.
Yeah.
Started doing Hoarders. I mean, I was single, living literally on my buddy's couch first time I was on TV, and now I'm married and got 3 kids. And so I've grown up a little bit, but I do clean up dead cats for a living, and so I enjoy a good dirty story. I mean, that's how we decompress, and I think that's what people need to understand. That I need the gross, like I need 81 cats in a fridge now. Like 80's not enough, right? I need 81, and I got found 300 cats in a house one time. I need 340 cats now. Like I'm still a recovering addict. I'm just addicted to good stuff.
Yeah.
And so I need grosser stuff. And so I enjoy the grosser stuff. I really love the really filthy stories, and I miss doing that podcast, but the new podcast is cool. We get a lot of really cool stories from families that have just lost someone, or someone's like a terminally ill. I interviewed a guy this week. He's terminally ill. He's getting ready to die.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, all right, man, well, before you die, like, what do you want the world to know about you? And like, you wouldn't believe the stuff he said. Like, this dude knows he's going to die in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so you talk about no filter. Like, It was insane. It was unbelievable. So I'm excited. I mean, although it's not as a funny, actually, you'd be surprised how funny people are when they know they're going to die.
Yeah.
They just lay it out there, man. So, I mean, I'm enjoying that, but I miss the old school, but I also have kids that can listen to it now and can hear it. Like, say that about that girl.
Yeah, that makes it hard.
Not my mommy. It's like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. Did your wife ever listen to it and get mad at you? Does that ever happen? No.
She never listened to it. Her friends would, and they'd be like, dude, he told this horrible story about you. And she's like, got him.
That's hilarious.
She honestly, we made a really hardcore decision early on that she wouldn't get involved in the entertainment stuff. And we stayed on the East Coast. We didn't go to LA. We didn't go to New York. And, she just wants me to show up on time. She just wants me to, be at the swim meet and be a dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that kept me grounded. That's one of the things that kept me, not getting above water. I mean, like, she's just not impressed with me in any way, shape, or form. And it keeps me pretty chill, really.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, you obviously, our listeners could know right now that you have a gift for storytelling, and that's what you do on the podcast. But you talk a lot about your dad being this great storyteller, which there's a really, like, the way you described the way your dad tells a story was a story in itself. Like, you're talking about how he would pick the cigar based on the length of the story that he had to tell.
He smoked a Hemingway short story. It was about a 30-minute cigar. And so he would always finish the story on the last ash. So the punchline came back on the last ash. And he was dropping a mic 50 years before you dropped mics. I mean, he owned a room and he knew how to tell a story. And so, I am lucky, man. I watched my dad for 20 years just tell stories, man. We'd go to bars and he'd sit down and he'd have 30 people listening to these crazy stories. And I'm sure half of them weren't true, but they were amazing stories, man. And so, I enjoy I'm brutal on. You keep hearing me say the word brutal honesty, man. Just tell it like it is. Like, let it tell itself, really. And my number one, this is kind of funny. I get to do a lot of stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and my number one best post ever was when nobody showed up for my book tour in middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Barnes and Noble had me there for a huge book signing. They publicized it. It was middle of the summer, which is always a bad time for that. Yeah. And I get there, it's like from 6 to 8, and there's like 75 seats there ready for this big lecture and book signing and everything. Not a damn person showed up, man. Not one single person. So there's this picture of me sitting there at the lectern with all these empty seats. So I put that picture up on Facebook, and still to this day, it's my number one post. So I learned from people like honesty, right? Yeah. They don't want Facebook's one big lie. Really, I've found out it's all people telling you what they think you want to hear. And so I just said, well, I'm gonna tell the truth. And so whether it's good or bad, I post it. And the bad ones are what people want to see because it's honest, it's real. Yeah. And so my dad taught me that very early, and then now social media has really proved it. And so I just tell the bad stuff, man. Yeah. I don't worry about the good stuff. If I tell you how great I am, you're gonna turn it off. Yeah. I tell you where I failed, and then I let you share your part of where you failed, and that makes us equal. Yeah. And it's actually the same way I clean. I mean, I tell the story I told you at the beginning, and I call it equalizing. I tell everybody how I failed. I tell everybody, man, I thought I was going to suck a bunch of dicks. And you'd be amazed how many people are like, dude, I know exactly how you feel, man. I can't believe you said that out loud. And so I think from a marketing perspective, telling your thoughts that you think, should I say this out loud? I argue, heck yeah, that's the one thing you say, because everyone else is not saying it. And when you say it, it's going to get people excited. And so that's my storytelling. And I watched my dad do it for years. Yeah. My dad died dead broke. I actually had to pay for his party after he died because he had no money. But man, 1,000 people showed up to his funeral and told amazing stories about him. Wow. Like, man, your dad gave me my first job. Your dad, man, he was the best, man. Like, he slept with my sister, but I still love your dad. And he would tell me all these horrible things my dad had done. And they're like, he's the best. Right? He was brutally honest. And I've learned that, like, you know what, you are who you are, just embrace it. Yeah. And that's what my dad did. And so his stories were like, my God, I mean, he was a cowboy, basically born 100 years too late. Like, he really should have been in the Wild Wild West. Yeah. And he would have torn it up. And so I do, man. I love telling my stories about my dad. And he just owned a room, man. Owned a room. That's it was awesome. You do too. So, I mean, that's a testament to you and what your dad passed on, I think, because, I mean, I love listening to your podcast and hearing stories, and it's just fun. It's like, it's really, I don't know if, John, if you've heard it yet, but it's like, it's super bare bones, just you telling stories, and it's fascinating. So basically, we would buy a pack and we just keep telling stories till we ran out of beer. Yeah.
I actually just added it on my iPhone as we were talking, so I'll have something to listen to on my commute tomorrow. It's 5 decisions away. Yeah, and it's still up. I'll leave it up. I haven't filmed it in probably. I mean, y'all, I'll be honest, I haven't done a podcast in over a year. Y'all, my first one back. Wow, and exclusive. And I'm just starting to get back into it.
Exclusivity right here, man.
That's awesome. Well, there's one story that you told on your podcast that just had me like on the floor talking about because you go around speaking a lot, and you've said because a lot of people open up to you, right? They just kind of you're because of the way you are, the way that you're no nonsense, you're honest about your past. But you talk about spending 2 days at some event with a George W. Bush impersonator. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that story was just like had me on the floor, like laughing out loud while I was hiking in the middle of the wilderness. So
I don't remember this. I'll tell you the part I remember. I was literally at this like big, very corporate convention.
Yeah.
And this dude's whole thing is he looks like George Bush. He's not George Bush.
Yeah.
He just looks like him. Well, I'm about as far left as they get. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and before Trump, I thought George Bush was the worst person I ever met in my entire life. And now he seems pretty reasonable, right? When you think about it.
That's what a lot of people say now.
I mean, you're like, oh my God, I'd do anything to have Bush back. Well, take Trump out of the whole scenario. So at that point, I'm sitting next to this guy that I can't stand. And so he's got all these people that I thought I had just joined this company. And so I thought that they were actually FBI people. And I thought it was actually George Bush. It turns out the two Secret Service guys were actually two accountants from our work office. And so it took me, and he's very religious. And so like I'm sitting here before I go on to this 1,000-person convention. I'm sitting here in the back of this green room with this dude that looks like George Bush. He's holding my hand with these two fake Secret Service guys, and we're praying to God. And I look, and one guy's crying, and I look up, and I'm like, "What the fuck am I doing with my life, man? Like, what is happening here?" And like, it was the weirdest thing. And then we end up having to hang out for the next 2 days. And this guy, I like stories. He's super religious, doesn't drink, and he only talks about looking like George Bush, nothing else. Because he doesn't really, I don't know what the hell he looks like in real life, and I don't know what he does. And I'm just like stretching for content. And so we're like, let's go get some ice cream. And then we go to this, it's in Indianapolis, no, St. Louis, I think it was St. Louis or Indianapolis probably. Yeah, it was Indianapolis. And there's this random like custard place there that's apparently world renowned. And we walk over there and we get out, and he's actually, this guy goes over the top, man. He's got these fake presidential seals that says official impersonator of the president of the United States, but it looks like the seal. And so he rents a black car, man. He rents a damn Lincoln wherever he's speaking so that he shows up looking like the president. And he's got these two fake security guys with him. We roll up to the custard place and we get out. And these people are like, holy shit, man, George Bush and the dude from Hoarders just rolled up in here together. So they're taking pictures of us. And like this is probably the part you love. This one like family, clearly immigrant family, just got here. They think it's George Bush. And they're like, oh my God, they pull the grandma out of the car. They pull the dad out of the car. And these are like old handicapped immigrants. They're pulling everybody out of the car to get these pictures with fake George Bush. And they're asking me to take the picture. And I'm like, I finally get in the car. I said, dude, his name was John. I go, John, I got to ask you, man, you know those people thought you were really George Bush. He's like, yep. And I go, you just going to let them believe that? He goes, man, we just made their night. He goes, the last thing they want to know is that I'm not George Bush. They need to know that I'm George Bush. It was the first time he broke character. And he goes, it'd be rude if I told him I wasn't. He goes,
of course.
Like, you know what? He's fucking right, man. Like, that's actually the right thing to do, as crazy as that was. And I was just like, this is the weirdest 2 days of my life.
Maybe they thought you were Dick Cheney.
I was probably too skinny at the time. I'll tell you the weirdest that's happened since I did my podcast.
Yeah.
I went on to do this Hallmark channel. They have this morning show, like Good Morning LA or whatever. It's like it's like the Today Show, but it's West Coast.
Yeah.
And like Debbie Mountainopoulos she's the host of it. And I was like, yeah, I'll do the show. I get over there and I'm talking about hoarding and we're doing all that stuff. And then the other guest is the Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. This is like 2 years ago. They were announcing that they were getting rid of the animals and they were going to do more BMX stuff. And like you said, wherever I go, people really want to know about what I do and they open up to me. And so I'm sitting there, and after the show, these two clowns come up to me and they're in full Ringling Brothers clown, like full white, big shoes, everything. And this one guy comes and he's got a tear painted on his face, and he comes to me and he's like, yo, man, I really didn't realize who you were, man. You're the guy from Hoarders. I really need to talk to you. I'm a hoarder, man, and I really need help. Well, I appreciate his honesty and his sincerity, but I'm looking at a fucking clown telling me all this stuff. And then his other clown friends come over to me, and so I'm sitting there getting like completely preached to, and I'm having to do a total social like hoarding education breakdown, and all of them are clowns in full makeup. And one of them, they're hugging each other and they're crying. And I'm like, man, I really appreciate you sharing your story. But I still to this day do not know what the dude looked like, because they were all, and they're pulling out their cell phones out of their big pockets, showing me like what the pictures of the little, they live in train cars. So they only live in like 40-foot area. And I'm like, well, how hoarded could it be? And it's all like, it's a hoard of like clown shoes and tricks and balloons. Like, dying. I'm like, man, I could probably help you, man, but like, I'm trying to get at the psychological part of it. Yeah. But I couldn't separate the fact that I'm sitting with a bunch of clowns, and my publicist is just looking at me. She's like, "What the hell is that?" And they're hugging me, and like, it was unbelievable. That's probably the most interesting conversation I've ever had. And I got a picture. Well, I got a picture. The ringmaster gave me his hat and his coat, and I got to put all the coat stuff on and take the picture. It was awesome. It was crazy.
That's ridiculous. What? So you talked about you've got a current podcast coming out, dropping soon. Do you have any other current projects that you're working on, or?
Yeah, man. I started a whole new company. It's called Legacy Navigator, and we help families through transition. So when someone dies in your life, and we help you figure out everything you got to do, from selling all the items to finding the paperwork to, sell even all the way to cleaning the house and selling the house. And we manage all the logistics, and we take a nice little social work approach to helping you figure out to do stuff when people are dead. Yeah. And people understand, though, I know it sounds pretty intense, but it's actually a really cool, it's like Hoarders. We get to help people, but we're just helping more people that have more problems. And it's pretty amazing. We've found that a lot of people just don't know where to turn when someone dies. Yeah. And we just take a really chill, very chill approach to it, and we help you figure everything out. And then if you want to do it yourself, you do it yourself. And if you want us to help you, we'll do it. And we just started. I took about 6 months off, and now it's great. I'm back in it, and I'm actually filming a new show. I can't talk a lot about that right now, but we'll have a new show on a major network coming out. And the coolest thing, we love helping people, but from a TV perspective, people really want to know about the stuff that we find. And we find incredible stuff every day. Because we're going through, like, I don't know how I'm 42. And so I'm cleaning the house of usually a 60 to 80-year-old. And so I'm cleaning it with the adult children that are usually like my age. And so I'm going through their like childhood room with them. And so we're finding Rubik's Cubes, and like I found a box full of old California raisins from
Those are great.
And they're actually pretty valuable. Yeah, we're finding insane Star Wars collections.
What's the best thing you've ever found in the process?
Well, I found $1 million in gold bars one time.
Holy crap.
Yeah, we were like, we didn't want to touch it. We were like, nope. We literally called the lawyer. No one touched it. We called the lawyer on Skype, and we made him hit record. And we're like, we ain't touching it till somebody gets here because we don't want our names on it. Wow. And it's scary. We find, coins, stamps. We find savings bonds all the time. We found a original Monet, not Monet, but Monet picture. It was like a $300,000 painting.
Holy crap. It was just sitting in somebody's attic.
It was under a poster. Yeah.
Like behind a Captain America poster.
Here's the crazy thing. So I sent it to one of our art experts, and I was like, we have a lot of groups we work with around the country, because you might find a box of marbles, but they might be really good marbles, or like a Barbie doll. You don't know if it's good or not. And we work with a lot of different auction houses, but I call this one guy, and I took the picture, and we have a thing. We don't take our cell phones into the house, because when working with the family members, you want to be connected to them. Yeah. And so I took the picture, sent it to him, came back, had like 30 missed calls. And I was like, oh, this must be valuable. I called the guy, He's like, dude, pick up your phone. Like, look at your phone. Is there another one in the house like it? And I look at it and I go, yeah, it's sitting right next to it. And he goes, those two paintings were stolen from a museum in the 50s in Cleveland. He's like, the museum is sending a representative today to buy them back from you guys.
Wow.
He's like, you got to have a lawyer there. And I was like, dude, we're just we're just cleaning the house up. Like, hold up, you know? And so we go back in and I go to the one lady and I said, look, ma'am, apparently these paintings are valuable. We've got some appraisers and some buyers actually want to come and offer you money today. And I said, how did you acquire these paintings? She goes, oh, well, my uncle was a banker in Cleveland and he got them as collateral on a loan. And I go, yeah, I'm not sure that that's accurate. And her husband goes, yo, we don't want to talk about this at all. And he goes, we're not. I was like, so you know the real story? And he goes, I have no comment. And so he totally knew they were stolen. He knew it his entire life. His wife never knew.
Wow.
And the museum ended up buying them. They paid him a very fair price for them that day. It was pretty fascinating. But yeah, I mean, every day we find crazy things, even for like love letters from World War II. I mean, we find really cool, emotional things and really cool financial things. And then we find 40,000 gallons of urine. I mean, we find it all.
Do you ever get to keep anything? Have you ever kept something from a hoard?
No. So we have a firm rule. We can't keep anything. We can't accept gifts and we can't buy anything.
Okay.
And it's been a firm rule until this year. I did a show of Hoarders, and the guy had actually he hoards museums. So when a museum goes out of business, he buys everything at like rock bottom. And he cleans out when the casino renovates, he gets all the stuff from the casinos. So he's in Vegas. He's pretty famous on his own right. He was lieutenant governor. His name is Lonnie. He's brilliant. He's just, the guy's huge. And so I'm sitting there working with him, and we realized he had acquired the Liberace Museum when it went out of business.
Oh, wow. And
I played piano growing up, and I love the flamboyancy and the showmanship of Liberace. Yeah. And he had a pair of Liberace's boots, and we were selling it at auction. And so I did break the rule at auction. I bought, I got bid up way high by someone else in the audience, but I ended up buying a pair of Liberace's boots.
Wow.
And I love them, and I'm gonna give them to a buddy of mine when he retires. But I bought them specifically for him. But it's sitting up in my house. It's just like, what the hell are those big red boots? Like, I ain't wearing them in any situation. She's like, I don't know why you have them. Like, get rid of them. And I was like, look, it's gonna be a gift. I love them, but like having them on, like, so they actually showed me buying them and wearing them on TV. So actually, the fact that I bought them on Hoarders actually increased the value, which was pretty cool.
Really? Wow.
So people call me all the time wanting to buy them. I'm like, nope, they ain't for sale, man.
That's really cool.
We found a lot of cars. I mean, we found a whole collection of Ferraris. We found.
How do you find Ferraris?
Man, in San Francisco, he had 6 Ferraris in different garages around the city. It was insane.
Wow. That's insane. Is it? I don't know. I'm just baffled by all of this.
So I will say this on the hoarding side: no matter how crazy it is to you and I, if you know the full story, it actually makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get that for sure.
Not all we're all crazy. We're all messed up. Ours is just, some people's is more obvious.
Yeah.
We can hide it because we don't have, you can't see our issues.
Yeah.
And with Hoarder, it's pretty hard to hide it. It's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's insane.
Well, behind the pile of shitty diapers.
Yeah.
You're really fixated on the shitty diapers.
We get a lot of diapers. The older I get, just the diapers is just a really good defense mechanism. If you got 8 feet of diapers, are you going in that door?
Mm. No, I'm not.
I want you to come inside, and so it's actually a really effective tool.
It's like a fort barrier or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a bottle of bottle rockets outside your fort. You're not going in there. It's the same thing.
Well, you got to give it to them for the ingenuity of that. I'm thinking
brilliant. They are brilliant, man. Brilliant. Like super, super smart.
I wonder if there's like, have you ever like been just baffled or just like can't believe how well that they've stacked something, or because like I look at those places and like, how is that standing still? Like,
they must be masters of Tetris.
They are brilliant, man, and mathematically it's fascinating. I had one guy. He was a nuclear scientist for the Navy,
Oh, wow.
And we actually, it's actually two funny stories. One, he had a stack of books that somehow like curved. It looked like a on the cover of a Dr. Seuss book, like how they curve at about 20 degrees.
Yeah.
Like this stack curved, and it was like 5 foot high, and he knew exactly how many he could put on it without it falling over. I mean, they're just mathematically brilliant.
Wow.
Same house. This is with my new business, Legacy Navigator, and website's legacynavigator.com. But it was amazing. We get in there, we're cleaning the house, fascinating guy. He worked in subs. He was a nuclear engineer. And two of my guys, Muhammad and Abdul, they go to the DC dump and in Washington, DC, and the Geiger counter goes off immediately.
Okay.
And that's a radiation meter. So I got Abdul and Muhammad in a rented U-Haul that we've paid cash, and the radiation meter's going off.
Oh my gosh.
In Washington, D.C. The people at the dump lose their shit very, very quickly, and they didn't see the humor in this at all. And my guys like, no. Like, we're not. I mean, they're thinking they're terrorists, and we're like, no. Slow down. Man. We're just cleaning some old dude's basement, man. And so we had to like immediately prove that where it had come from.
Yeah.
And the home, thank God, someone from the state called, and they were like, this is just. And it turns out the guy's paper, who'd been in the nuclear sub his whole life, that's where his office was, had enough. The paper had enough radiation in it to set off the meters.
God.
And so learn, believe it or not, in Washington, D.C., it's a very protected city. Even if you have trash that has radiation, they're going to find out.
Yeah, where can people find you if they want to follow Matt Paxton?
Yeah, on Facebook, best thing is find me at Matt Paxton on Facebook, or on our my new business is Legacy Navigator. It's at Legacy Navigator on Facebook. We're doing a weekly Facebook or monthly Facebook Live, and then we send a ton of posts and a lot of blogs every week, probably 2 to 3 each week. And then the new podcast will be Modern Grief, and that'll be available at Legacy Navigator on Facebook. And I'll be putting that actually starting July 1st.
Oh, wow.
And we're really excited about that. I'm excited to get the new podcast out. And then you can always just email me, matt@legacynavigator.com, if you got questions. If you got, a lot of people have private questions about their families they need help with. Just email me, matt@legacynavigator.com. But best way, and then if you really just want to be, if you hate me from my Trump comments, go to I am Matt Paxton on Twitter. That's the best way to isolate you.
We've gotten a little bit of hate mail from that too, but it's hard
I had to turn
nowadays.
my Twitter off for about 3 months because it just got so aggressive.
It's pretty bad out there. But I'm glad that we're able to have conversations like this. That's why podcasts are so great now, because everybody wants to, go head to head on Twitter or Facebook, and nobody has the face to face. You're talking to real people.
Here we are. We've spent an hour talking about a mental disorder, and we've laughed and we've had fun. And believe it or not, someone on your listener group will be like, "Oh my God, I need to get help from my mom." And so someone's actually going to get help after this hour, because we presented it in a manner that was actually fun and chill and no judgment. And I think that's the key. No judgment. You could take that to politics. You could take it to anything, man. We need to just chill out. Sure, and that is a very Canadian philosophy, and I know that. I spent a lot of time up there, and Toronto and Vancouver, my God, 2 of the best places in the world.
You got to come to Montreal.
Well, I did, but I spent the whole time at Super Sexy. I never left. That's tough, man. Like the entire time.
Oh man,
unbelievable.
Yeah, I hear they have a good buffet there.
It's chill. It's just it's much chiller, and there's just no judgment, man. Like, and I stress that on anything your listeners are listening to, man. Like, dude, we're all messed up. Ain't none of us got no place to judge anybody. And like, just chill out and love some people, man. Like, that's why I do well on TV. It's why I do well in business, man. Like, it's like, man, I'm lucky to have a job. I'm lucky people want to listen to me. And I'm sure as hell not going to judge you for any of your stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And when the show airs, we got to have you back on to talk about some of these, because I want to watch it.
Do it, man. I can announce in late summer. I can announce all the stuff. But you got, I'd love to, put this out on my Facebook page and when it comes out too. So just stay in touch, and we'll keep everybody connected.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thanks again.
Fantastic.
This part of the show is brought to you by Phoenix Shaving, makers of the most excellent aftershaves, shaving soaps, and all things traditional man. One of my favorite products of theirs are their aftershaves. Phoenix Shaving intentionally blurs the lines between traditional aftershave and classic cologne. Each batch of aftershave cologne is created by using traditional perfuming methods, giving the wearer a high dose of quality skin food matched by the staying power of berry white. Now, I tell you, this stuff is amazing. It'll make your skin feel great after a shave, and the alum and menthol just removes all irritation and razor bumps. They have classic barber scents and even more creative soap and aftershave fragrances. Like, my favorite is the Tombstone scent. It smells like leather, tobacco, and gunpowder. Pretty unique. So ditch those vials of chemicals you buy at the drugstore every month and grab some artisan soap and aftershaves from Phoenix Shaving. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/shave to help support the show and get some fantastic manly grooming products. Phoenix Shaving. Shaving outside the box. All right. Coming to a close here. Another great interview. Matt Paxton, hilarious guy. Check him out if you haven't already. We'd like to give a shout out to Rezbot. That's REZZBOT. It's an app in the Apple App Store or on your Android device. I don't know if you guys know this, guys. This week, the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast is a featured artist on the app. So if you download Rezbot, and it's actually a pretty cool app. It's like it helps people like us, storytellers, creatives, anybody who needs a resume, really, tell their story, in a professional manner. So if you need to put together a resume, check that out. It's super cool. It's like it's a Rezbot. It's a resume bot. It walks you through the process. You fill it out, and at the end, you have a resume you can send to someone, which is kind of cool.
Not a sex bot.
Working is good because money is fine.
And also, we're about to start a new segment with everyone's favorite therapist on our show, Eric Anderson. We're going to do a Dear Therapist segment, kind of like the Dear Abby segment. So if you have anything you want to ask a therapist anonymously, or anonymously.
Yeah, anonymously.
You could send an email to gentlemanscofflaw@gmail.com or leave a voicemail at man81scoff, and your question will be read or played in future segments with Eric. So just go ahead and send that away. And this week we are giving away a Phoenix aftershave and cologne on Instagram. So go to instagram.com/gentscofflaw for your chance to win a Cavendish aftershave and cologne. So it smells like pipe tobacco, guys. So if you always wanted to put on an aftershave that smells like you're smoking a pipe, smoking a pipe in a den, reading a book, it makes what the thing is with that? It'll make women think of their grandfather in a good way, I think, right? In like a way that feels like home.
Yeah. They're very, very,
Is Bill Cosby a grandfather?
Oh, gosh. Bill Cosby in the aftershave and the Cavendish and all right.
And on that note,
John, you are a gentleman in a scofflaw, my friend. Donovan, you are a gentleman in a scofflaw, my friend.
and you as well.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
This has been the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do. Hey!